Chapter 9 is probably the toughest chapter in the book, but hopefully this video will help you get through it. For this exercise, you are supposed to create your own game, and I've given you the actual Chapter 9 file in the Chapter 9 Dropbox. So go ahead and look at that and dissect it and kind of look through it and see how each element was made, what the instance names are, how those instances are referenced in the action script, and that should also help you with this project. So my game is about shapes, and it's about the 9 different formal classes, so to speak, of shapes, and it's trying to get people to understand the differences between them. And so let's go ahead and look at a preview of this project. The first page is just a review, and then they click on a button to take them to the next page where it can either take them back to the review if they're not really ready to take the quiz or, do the activity. And then it explains some directions for the game. And then in Chapter 9, we learn how to create an input text box where people can go ahead and type their name in. And then it goes to the next frame, which is the actual game. And as you can see, it has a line that includes the person's name from the input text box. And then we're going to do some drag and drop with these movie clips that allow them to move which shapes they believe belong to which areas. And once they've put them all in there, they can click Get Some Answers. And then this takes us to the answer screen where it shows us the correct answers, and then a button that'll take us back to the game so they can try again. So this is going to be a fairly long video, but I'll try to make it as fast as possible so that we can get through each step. And with my project, I have actually created, I think, 7 different files so that I try not to take too long on each step. So for the first step, what you need to do is you need to add some action script. So when I'm looking at this, the first thing you need to do is have a layer called actions. If you don't have a layer called actions, Flash will actually make one for you. You have to have this layer. And it's a good idea to make sure that all of your layers are locked except for the ones you're working on. And because we're working with actions, we can keep it locked because we don't want to put any content on here. So we've inserted for the 4 frames for our movie, which is our first page is the review, directions, game, and answers. So these all have blank keyframes, and then on them we have the stop action. And you should be able to use this stop at this frame. Go ahead and move your playhead to that frame, double click on stop at this frame, and I'll automatically add that action script with some comments in there that explain to you what the action does, and I've already just deleted those comments. Alright, and if we go through here, just so you know, I have created these buttons as we normally do with up, over, down states, and there's a top layer for the text because it doesn't really change for either of the states. And now that you know how to make buttons, just know that you don't actually have to have a hit state, because if you don't have a hit state, it'll use whatever was on the down state. But previously, I wanted you guys to use a hit state until you understood it. So hopefully now you should understand the hit state, and so you don't need it anymore. Alright, so everything else here is just created with normal text, and it is basic classic text, static text, and all of these as well. This is just a regular square. This is just an imported graphic for the background. So it's everything that you've been able to do up to this point. But now it's going to get a little bit different with ActionScript 3. We need to make this button function, but instead of actually putting it on the button itself, as you can see, you cannot do it in ActionScript 3.0. You need to reference this button in actions and then say, okay, for this button called blank, and that's the instance name, when somebody clicks on it, do this. So you're pretty much doing something called a listener, and the project or the Flash movie is listening for a mouse click, and then you tell it what to do when it hears that mouse click. So, and it doesn't actually hear it, it feels it, so to speak. But as I click on this button and go up to the properties panel, you'll see that I have directions BTN, and this is an instance of the movie or the button symbol BTN 2 directions. So if we look in the library, we have BTN 2 directions, that's the button, and then the instance name is directions BTN. And the reason why you don't keep them the same is because you're going to reference this in your script, but if they were the exact same name, it'd be kind of confusing because you'd say, okay, so is this what it's referencing, or is the actual name of the movie clip? But it's actually the instance name. So when I click on this button, I can go over to the code snippets, and I'm going to click or double click go to frame and stop. So here we go. And it's saying the movie clip with the instance name directions BTM. It's going to listen for the event click, and when it hears the click, it's going to go to and stop at frame, whatever frame. So we need to go ahead and tell it what frame to stop at, and we want it to stop on frame 2. So we're going to change this, and this gives you directions right here telling you what to do. Replace the number 5 in the code below with the frame you want to jump to. So basically that's all we have to do for each of these buttons. I click on review, double click this, come here, and again it has an instance name, review BTN, and if you didn't have an instance name in here, then Flash would say, whoa, you have to have an instance name, and it would make you type one in. So if I come back here, I want this review to go back to frame 1, and then I can click here and click to go to frame, and this one I want it to go to frame 3 because I want it to go to the game. So I think this one right here is where I've added all the action script and I've taken out all the directions for the project. And again, this one goes to frame 3 because it's going back to the game. So before we move on, we need to embed our fonts in our project, and you might use a custom font that somebody doesn't have on their computer, and with ActionScript 3.0 it needs to actually embed that font in the project so that it can run correctly. So click on each unique font that you use in your project. So this one is called Blackjack, and you're going to click on embed, and then you're going to say which part of that font do you want to keep with this project. And I usually just do, just to be safe, uppercase, lowercase, numerals, and punctuation. If you know you're only going to use uppercase, then just choose uppercase. So I'll call this Blackjack regular. And then I'll start clicking on other fonts. This one is Blue Highway regular, so I'll embed that and call it Blue Highway regular. And then if I double click in here, this one is Blue Highway bold, and this one's Blue Highway regular, which I've already added. But this Blue Highway bold I'll need to embed, and then this Blue Highway D I need to embed. And that's what happened here, is I've already embedded all my fonts and put them in a folder called Embedded Fonts. And they have this icon with an A, so you know that they're embedded fonts. Alright, so once you have embedded your fonts, then you need to go ahead and add the input. So this is where people type in their name. It's just a regular text box. And if I go to properties, you can see that it's classic text, but now instead it says input text. So instead of static text, it's input. And again, it's input because people are putting in their information. And then I click this little border so it shows an actual physical box. And then make sure, even though you're not typing in it yourself right here, that your font is the color and the style and the size that you want it to be. And once you have created that input text box, then you're going to give it a name. So I'll click on it in the instance and I'll put input name. And then if we go to our next frame, we need to do dynamic text. And this is where it's going to take whatever name it got in that input box and put it on this page. So I'll go ahead and choose text box, and this time I'm going to choose dynamic text, and I'm going to change my color to green just so we can see what's happening, and I'm probably going to do 22 and centered and not selectable. Okay, so I will drag that out. Oops, and that's, let me think. Okay, it's not behaving correctly. So I'll drag that out there and make sure it says classic dynamic. It has all the font I want it to, and it's on this layer, which this should actually be called the game layer. Okay, so now we need to add the code, and because this is going to take a really long time if I do all the code, I'm going to steal it from that original project file I gave you. So we need this one where it says the variable my name, and we're going to add a string of text, which is why we have the quotes with nothing in them, because we don't know what they're going to put in them, because everybody's name is going to be different. So let me go ahead and shut these. Okay. And I hope I did not just close. No, okay. So anyway, we're going to put that variable right there, and it's the same for everybody. But then if we come back here, we're going to say, we're going to give this command, and we actually I need to put it on this one because this is where it's going to go to frame 3 where my dynamic text is going to be. If I would put it here with this button, the review button, that goes back to frame 1, it wouldn't work. So I'll go ahead and do that, and it's getting this word input name that can change depending on whatever the instance name is here. So if I called this input box, then I would have to, in the action script, call this input box. And again, capital letters, spaces, all that matters. So make sure that you're typing everything correctly. So then as I come here, I need to give this an input name, and I'm going to call this who boss. Oops. And go back to the project builder. And I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to show you what that looks like when you change names. So go ahead and put this in the action script. And this is the instance name. And so I'm going to call this who boss. Oops. Who boss. And it's going to give me text back. And you can put whatever you want in here. Show those shapes who's boss. Oops. And I keep doing that. I don't know why I can't type boss without messing up. And then it's going to put whatever you referenced my name in the last frame. And then I don't want this good luck with a comma. I just want the exclamation point. Sorry. Okay, let me go ahead and try this out and type a name. Show those shapes who's boss, Jessica. Okay. Good. So we've got all that worked out, and this is a good point to stop, and you're going to have to watch the next video, part 2, for chapter 9. I told you these videos were going to be long, but hopefully this is going to help you to build your project.